Have you ever visited a museum in The Sims 4? Probably yes. Have you stayed longer than 3 game hours? Much less likely. There's simply not much to do at them besides look at a couple of sculptures and wonder why you visited in the first place. Well, that's all about to change. We're going to look at 6 museum ideas to elevate your game and overall museum experiences. Buckle up because we're heading to outer space to start. That's right, a space museum. While you can absolutely pull this off in the base game, the Get to Work expansion pack will add in a lot of cool features. There are a couple of space or science themed installations that you can put in, like the commemorative freeze ray, but really, we're here to go beyond your standard installations. There are so many space themed activities which can bring this space, pun intended, to life, such as adding in the backyard observatory or giant microscope, and even adding in a rocket ship. I know what you're thinking, and yes, it's The Sims, so I'm okay with a communal rocket ship that anyone can use with no prior experience. Note that you will need a sim to build the rocket ship and ideally add on a few upgrades as well. There are other activities that tie in too, such as having a chess set present, and while I didn't add it to my museum, the ridiculously sized microscope can be a further activity. When it comes to adding installations to the museum, there are a lot of collections that tie in, including the space rocks and alien collections, which you can find by completing space missions. The crystal collection works well too, as do metals, and there's even a fossilized alien skull as part of the fossil collection. The Space Prints collection, which you can collect by using a backyard observatory, can serve for some great wall decor in the same way as microscope prints from using the microscope can. If you have the Get to Work expansion pack, then you can also display the Geode collection from Exploring 6am, and the expansion pack brings with it inventions from the science career which can serve as great installations too and add some further activities into your museum. The Satellite Dish is an awesome feature which can see you create neighborhood hive minds or increase your sim's chance of getting abducted by aliens, among other things. The Cloning Machine too is awesome for duplicating many collectibles, and there's also the Electroflux Wormhole Generator. If upgraded, this will allow your sims to travel to the alien homeworld of 6am straight from your museum. Placing these inventions in your museum is a great way to make them easier to use for any sim in your neighborhood. Now, speaking of the alien homeworld, I added in an area where some of the space plants from the world are growing as well, just in case your sims wanted to pick some and take them home for their own garden. And while I didn't add them into my museum, the chemical analyzer and chemistry lab can offer a few more activities for visiting sims as well. I even added a play area with some space themed activities for kids. And because every museum needs an easel for some strange reason, not sure why that's a requirement, I disguised the easel within the area too. Overall, the Space Museum is just an awesome way to combine a conventional museum with a really usable area that will enrich your game. Note that I'll be popping this Space Museum onto the gallery. Next up, inspired by Borderless in Japan, it's time to turn our attention to a museum of lights. This is partly also inspired by Vivid, which we have here in Sydney, where they set up light installations throughout the city for a few weeks in winter. This one can be really fun to make and does require you to get creative using different lights to make various installations. For example, the laser show lights are a fun way to make up one installation. I used a lot of candles to make another and added a reading element to the room just to give it a further use. While I focused on one candle in different colors, you can also use all different candles and then alter the light colors and intensity for a different installation. You can also experiment with putting lights inside translucent objects or even with lit up fountains for a grand entrance. If you have the Get Together expansion pack, then while a little bit strange for a museum, another idea is to create a laser light-filled dance floor with a DJ booth to really get the party going, and just provide a museum experience that's truly unlike any other. Moving on to the third museum idea, and we have the Museum of Emotions. You'll ideally want a sim who's a good painter to help you get this one started, and it's a fairly simple premise. The idea is to have different rooms in the museum which represent different moods. Inside the room, you'll want to place objects, such as emotional paintings, in which you can enable their emotional aura to make it so that when people enter that room, they experience that emotion. This one can be rather fun. Bring your struggling writers into the inspired room, Or maybe if your sim is in a little love life rut, then you can bring them into the flirty room that I conveniently decorated with a bed. And if your sim's itching for a fight, then maybe the room of anger is calling them. Make it your own and send your sims on an emotional roller coaster when they come and visit. Moving on now, and for the fourth idea, we're turning our attention to collections. That's right, it's time to create a space for your sims who've completed various collections to drop them off so that the whole neighborhood can enjoy them, should they be willing to part ways with their collectibles, of course. This museum can be fun as various sims in your neighborhood can take up different collections and contribute to the museum as a kind of neighborhood project. It also just gives a little bit more of a purpose to some of the collections that you might not think about that often. Moving on now to the fifth idea, which is a museum of photography. And this one is really helped along if you have the Machino stuff pack, as it allows access to tripods, subject markers, and backdrop walls. Despite this stuff pack is not essential, as sims can still take pictures in the base game using their own cameras in their inventory. The idea behind this museum is to create different settings and scenes that your sims can take photos in, almost like mini movie sets. For example, I created a library setting with tall bookcases and lush armchairs for one scene, very office chic. I also created a very random pink garden scene that I'm ridiculously into, even though I'm not quite sure what it is. Yes, I did make it myself, not sure what I did, but I'm here for it. But the options are endless in terms of setting up different scenes. Using the backdrops from the Machino stuff pack also enables a customizable background with lots of different looks from just one location. Also note that if you have the Get Famous expansion pack, then the special effects machine allows you to have an array of different visual effects rain down from above, which can also enhance your scenes. What I also love to do in this museum is create a large wall dedicated to people hanging up a picture or two that they took while visiting, and while it'll start off very small and sparse to begin with, over time it'll be filled with pictures from all of the sims you've played with and visited the museum with. It's a really nice touch that gives you a reason to keep coming back with different families. A side note here is to give the museum the natural light lot trait, which will boost the photography skill. The final museum idea is to create a haunted house style museum. I am not going to lie, when the paranormal stuff pack was first announced, I thought haunted houses were going to be community lots rather than residential lots, and I have still to this day wanted haunted house community lots. For this museum, you'll want to go right ahead and add the spooky lot trait so that ghosts turn up from time to time. Note that ideally for this type of museum, you want the spooky stuff pack, paranormal stuff pack, and the vampires game pack, and you probably need at least one of them to be able to pull this style of museum off. Now there are a lot of ways to bring this museum to life. Between the three packs, there's a lot of spooky themed art, and notably the artworks from the spooky stuff pack also transform and change. Kind of like the art in Harry Potter, but maybe not as cool. Let's be honest, you can't really compete with Harry Potter. There's also a good range of sculptures from the Vampires game pack and a lot of spooky themed lights from the Spooky Stuff pack, which are good to use. The Spooky Stuff pack also brings with it the pumpkin carving station, and I created a little carving workroom where sims can carve lanterns. I joined this station to a room with a large platform. The idea is that people carve and light their lantern, preserving it so that it doesn't go off, of course, and then they add it onto the platform installation when they visit. Note that you'll need level 5 handiness to preserve pumpkin carvings. It adds a fun way for your sims to get involved besides just viewing art. An idea using the Vampires game pack could be to create a sealed off underground vampire tomb, which can add to the spooky nature of the lot. Using the paranormal stuff pack, you can also pop in a seance table and chairs where people can commune with the dead. And definitely don't forget some of the cool objects you can get from completing gigs in the paranormal career. From Dahlia dolls to strange idols, and most notably the specters in a jar, which are so cute and really do add to the haunted vibe. This idea is a really great way to use packs that might not have a huge amount of uses, especially if you're not into playing more spooky or haunted households. And that brings us to the end, with 6 different museum ideas to improve your game. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed or found that helpful, then please subscribe and leave a like, I would really appreciate it, and have an amazing day. See you later.